Well, I was going to ask if you could pray for me, ma'am. Right now.
I'll definitely be praying for you, son.
Just after midnight this morning, our 911 communications center received a call from a young man who stated he had just killed his parents. He stated that deputies could find his parents at the house and that he had walked just over a mile away to a church and he would await for deputies to arrive to take him into custody. Through the investigative process, we did discover that he had called his sister prior to calling 911. And so that's some new information that we're going to have to track down.
When she lived at home, their family dynamic was normal.
We joked around with each other. We played a lot. We played video games with each other. We went to the movies. We were like your regular family. No issues at all whatsoever.
In 2019, 6 years before Brandi Smith-Lee and her husband would be tragically murdered by their own son, Brandi shared a post on social media that now feels chilling in hindsight. She wrote, "This little boy gives me pure hell. Everything I did to my parents, I'm getting it back times 10. Y'all keep us lifted in prayer." Now, at the time, it seemed like a raw and honest moment between a mother and her child. Maybe Brandi was just venting or sharing a heartfelt thought with friends and family online. But now that post has resurfaced and it's getting hundreds of reactions, shares, and comments because people are looking back at it with a whole different lens. Fast forward to August the 4th, 2025. That same little boy, now 14-year-old Trevor Lee, would call 911 and confess to killing both of his parents inside their Middleburg, Florida home. Authorities say he then walked to a nearby church roughly 15 minutes away where deputies found him and took him into custody without incident. And during that 911 call, Trevor had just one request for the dispatcher. He told them to pray for him. The Clay County Sheriff's Office confirmed that both Brandi, who was 45 years old, and her husband, David Lee, who was just 44, had been shot. Police say it appeared to be an isolated domestic-related incident. And in a new detail just released, investigators confirmed that before 14-year-old Trevor, called 911, he actually called his sister. Now, by all accounts, this seemed like a stable family from what their family and Trevor's best friend have said. It's a quiet household, but something happened that night that led Trevor to make a devastating decision. Now, while this is still an active and ongoing investigation, authorities say Trevor is talking. According to them, he's already told investigators his side of the story and what he claims led up to the tragedy that unfolded that night. You're going to hear exactly what the sheriff is willing to share with us at this point. But of course, the moment this case hit social media, the internet had a lot to say and they are divided. Now, one person wrote, "The reality is, unless they," of course referring to the parents, "were both trying to actively harm him at the time, it's murder, not a mistake." And then someone else weighed in and they said, "Couldn't ignore the 911 call. To hear him requesting prayer on that 911 call melted my heart. I pray God sees him through this time." Now, of course, some blame parenting, and what they said was, these kids need to hear no. This is what happens when you wait too long to hear that word. Now, what's interesting is keep this post in mind as you're listening to the sheriff and come back to this and tell me what are your thoughts about what this person had to say. Now, while others urge compassion and patience and by stating before people start judging, let's find out what happened and what was going on in the house first. Now, of course, this case has struck a nerve. It's not just about what happened. It's about why it happened for a lot of people. And you're going to hear what the sheriff's office is willing to share with us. Now, before we get into the press conference, and the new interview from the Clay County Sheriff, I want to play for you the 911 call because it gives you a raw and emotional look into Trevor's mindset immediately after the tragedy. Now, you're going to hear in his own voice what he said after taking the lives of both of his biological parents and then leaving the house to walk nearly 15 minutes to a nearby church where he told authorities that he went to pray. Listen to this.
In this disturbing case.
Yes, deputies say after the shooting, Trevor Lee walked about a mile from his home over here to a nearby church where he then called 911. His words on that 911 call paint a heartbreaking picture of what happened next. This is where deputies say 14-year-old Trevor Lee waited after shooting his parents in their Middleburg home. He called 911 from Cross Point Church, about a mile away, and asked dispatchers for help and for prayer.
I'm gonna pray first. I need to pray.
You need to pray?
Yes, ma'am.
In the call, Trevor tells dispatchers he threw away his backpack and emptied his pockets while waiting for police to arrive.
I'm by the road. I threw my backpack away from me. I'm stripped. I'm waiting for police.
What do you mean you're
I have
stripped?
nothing in my pocket. I emptied my pockets and everything.
Inside the home, deputies found 44-year-old David Lee and 45-year-old Brandi Smith, both shot to death in their bedroom. Investigators say the teen used a gun that belonged to his parents and left it at the scene.
Sheriff's Office, how can I help you?
Hello, please. I need you some help.
In another 911 call, a caller from out of state tried to understand what could have happened.
Sorry, I'm out of state. I'm in the military. I don't know what goes on. But they just had a good day. They went to the movies, bro. They went to the movies.
The sheriff says the shooting appears to have stemmed from an argument Sunday night. Deputies are now looking into Trevor's mental health and school history. He's charged with 2 counts of second-degree murder. The 911 call Trevor made ends with a quiet moment and a request.
Do you pray?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead, I'll listen to you.
Well, I was going to ask if you could pray for me, ma'am. Right now.
I'll definitely be praying for you, son.
And if you haven't done so already, please go ahead and like the video because it helps to push the coverage out so that other people can see it as well. Also, drop a comment and let me know what are your thoughts after hearing that call. Now, keep in mind, authorities believe that after he committed this horrific act, that he left his house, left the weapon in the house, and walked to the church, which was about 15 minutes away, and you're going to hear that, okay? Now, you heard that 911 audio, and you probably noticed that there were 2 different calls that were released. One of those 2 calls is alleged to have come from Trevor's sister. And you heard in the call that she said, sorry, I'm out of state and I'm in the military. I don't know what is going on. They had a good day. They went to the movies. She seemed frantic. Now, that's important to note because in a follow-up interview after the press conference, the sheriff confirmed that Trevor called his sister, who's currently out of state and serving in the military. So it's believed that second 911 call came from her. And of course, those are her biological parents as well, which you'll hear in this news clip. But before we get into the full press conference, I'm going to play the news clip from Trevor's sister. So listen to this.
From the sister of the 14-year-old boy accused of shooting and killing his own parents. Deputies say after shooting David Lee and Brandi Smith, the teen walked to a nearby church and turned himself into law enforcement. Only Action News' Alexis Clevenger spoke to the woman hours after she lost her parents and saw her brother arrested.
Ayanna Russell is now without both of her parents.
I wish I can go back and thank her one last time. Tell her I love you one last time to let my dad know how much I appreciated him.
The Clay County Sheriff's Office says David Lee and Brandi Smith were shot to death early Monday morning. And their son, 14-year-old Trevor Lee, is charged with the killing.
I'm shocked, honestly. I'm taking I'm at a loss for words that this has happened.
Deputies say there was an argument last night between Trevor and his parents that led up to the shooting. And after the murder, Lee walked to a nearby church and turned himself over to deputies. Russell says when she lived at home, their family dynamic was normal.
We joked around with each other. We played a lot. We played video games with each other. You know, we went to the movies. We were like your regular family. No issues at all whatsoever.
And she says her brother was a good kid.
He's a bright young man. He wanted to become a football player. He was freshly coming into high school, a freshman. The kids loved him. You know, he had friends, lots of friends.
She says she had no idea about the argument or any issues between her brother and parents. But despite this horrific tragedy, Russell says she still loves her little brother.
Did he make a mistake? Yes. He made a big mistake, a huge one. My little brother, he is not a monster.
Okay, so you just heard the interview from Trevor's sister where she defended him and said, he is not a monster. He made a mistake. Now, keep in mind that she was not there when this happened. This occurred in Florida, and as we know, she lives in California. So all he could do in the moment was to call his sister after he left the home. There was about a 15-minute walk from his home to the church. And during that time, it's alleged to believe that he called his sister. Now, people online are already posing the question if the call was recorded, if the police have it. We don't know if the call was recorded. All we know is that he called her, and as a response to her calling him, calling her, whatever details he relayed to her, that prompted her to call 911, as you heard from that recording. So now I'm going to go ahead and play his best friend and then a cousin of his mother, who unfortunately, you know, she was one of the victims. So listen to this.
Friends. Kyrie Beeman says he was at this house nearly every week and considered the Lee family as his own. He says he and Trevor played football together, and just this past Friday, Trevor and his dad, David Lee, gave him a ride to and from practice. And now Kyrie is still trying to separate the friend he grew up with from the crime he's accused of.
I just didn't think it was real.
Kyrie Beeman, now standing outside of a home he once considered a second home, still trying to process the unthinkable. The Clay County Sheriff says a 14-year-old boy called 911 saying he had just killed his parents, then walked to a nearby church to wait for deputies. That teen was Trevor Lee, Kyrie Beeman's best friend.
He was funny, charismatic. He always brought good energy, good vibes, and he was probably one of the best people I knew.
Kyrie says he and Trevor had been friends since elementary school, and they spoke on the phone just after midnight.
He told me that he loved me, and he told me that he was just calling to tell me goodnight.
Now Kyrie is asking the community not to judge his friend by this one moment alone.
A happy person. I mean, is a good person all the way around.
James Lewis is cousins with Brandi Smith and says her family was like any other.
Every time I seen them laughing, you know, joking, doing family things.
2 parents gone, a teen behind bars, and a Middleburg community now rattled forever.
The Trevor that did this, I don't know that Trevor. And the Trevor that I knew and all of our friends knew, I will continue to be friends with him. And I pray that the Trevor that did this died last night.
You just heard from Trevor's best friend. You also heard from a family member. Now, keep in mind that was 2 different news clips that I merged together, and I took out the part that gave the background on the story since we already previously heard that. Now, what everyone is saying is that this seemed like a good family. This is out of the ordinary. Trevor was a good person, that this did not seem like the Trevor that they knew. Now, keep in mind, all authorities have said up to this point is that an argument happened. And whatever happened, Trevor felt that the only option for him was to do this unthinkable act. So now I'm going to go ahead and get into the initial press conference where the details are going to be laid out. So listen to this.
This morning to report some just terribly tragic news. Just after midnight this morning, our 911 communication center received a call from a young man who stated he had just killed his parents. He stated that deputies could find his parents at the house and that he had walked just over a mile away to a church and he would await for deputies to arrive to take him into custody. Deputies responded immediately to both locations, the church and then to a home on out here in the Middleburg area. When deputies arrived to the church, they took 14-year-old Trevor Lee into custody. When almost simultaneously deputies arrived to the address in question, they found 2 deceased individuals inside, David Lee, 44 years of age, and Brandi Smith, 45 years of age. Both of the deceased appeared to have gunshot wounds. Based upon our preliminary investigation, and we're still very early in this investigation, it appears that there was some sort of domestic argument last night between Trevor Lee and his parents, and that this shooting culminated from that argument. This does appear to be an isolated incident, and we have no further threat to our community at this time. Again, this is a very active scene. Our detectives are working diligently to try to figure all of this out. We do want to extend our deepest sympathies to the family, the friends, and all of those who are affected by this heartbreaking incident, and we would like to ask anybody in the community that may have some information regarding Trevor Lee or his parents to please reach out to us at 904-264-6512. And with that, I will take any questions.
Did the teen have any prior mental health history, anything like, visiting the guidance office at, school, or any therapy, any Baker Acts?
That we're looking into that. That's going to be part of the investigation. You think about this just happened at midnight last night, just after midnight, and we're here early Monday morning. So all of that is going to be looked at. His history at school, any previous contacts, we don't know right now, but that'll be part of the investigative process.
Just going by names alone, biological dad, do we have a relation with the woman?
I believe these are both his biological parents. At this time, I know the father is for sure.
Just with different names, I was curious.
Correct.
Was it the parents' gun or was the kid's gun?
At this time, we believe it's going to be the parents' gun, but we're still, again, looking into that through, talking to him, finding out where the gun was, how he got a hold of the gun, how did he know the gun was there. The gun was recovered at the scene. He left the gun at the scene when he walked to the church to call 911.
Were they both shot just one single time, and if so, where?
That I do not know. Again, part of the investigative process.
And additionally, was there anyone else in the home, maybe a sibling who was obviously not harmed but was just in the home?
At this time, it appears that only Trevor and his parents were in the home when this incident occurred.
Anyone else?
Anything else? Again, appreciate you guys coming out, and just, again, if any citizens have any information about Trevor Lee, please give us a call, 904-264-6512, or send us a Safe Watch tip. Thank you.
Real quick, do you know if you've had any incidents at the home? Have you guys ever had to respond to the home?
I don't know the answer to that yet. That's going to be part of the investigative process. Listen, we're still early, very early in this. Detectives, our crime scene technicians are still on scene. This is very, very early in this. Thank you.
Okay, so you just heard the initial press conference, and as she stated that because this incident just happened and it's so early on, then there's a lot of information that they're still working to uncover because the investigation is underway. What they do know is that Trevor, he's 14 years old, he admitted that there was an argument. Based on the argument that they had, he felt the only option was to unfortunately murder both of his parents. Now, in addition to that, you also heard her state that he went to the church, he surrendered without incident, and now there was a follow-up interview that she did where she provided more details, and this is from Law and Crime. So I'm not going to use the full interview. This is just a snippet that's relevant to the new information, and that's what I'm going to play. So listen to this and drop your comments and let me know what are your thoughts. Of course, this is an unfortunate tragedy. He is only 14 years old, and there has been questions about if she is his biological mom because of her name being hyphenated and them not sharing the same last name, but you heard her address that through the press conference as well. So from what they know, it is his biological mom. There's nothing to lead them to believe that it's not his biological mom. But of course, if more comes from that, then I will be sure to keep you guys updated. So listen to this.
Extremely tragic when you have a 14-year-old that feels such a way that the only solution is to kill their parents. We are still very early in this investigation. The suspect has been very cooperative with our detectives, and walking us through his thought process, and all of that will be revealed in time. But through the investigative process, we did discover that he had called his sister prior to calling 911, and so that's some new information that we're going to have to track down. His sister is in the military, is stationed in another state, so we're going to have to get her in and interview her regarding this issue, this terrible, terrible incident.
Wow, that kind of blows my mind. I mean, it does and it doesn't. I mean, he's done something that he's admitted to, and he calls his older sister. Obviously, she's older. She's in the military. Do we have any idea kind of how much older? I mean, is she 18, 19? I don't know how old she is. I know she's old enough. Obviously she's stationed out in, I believe, in California. And after he committed this heinous, terrible crime, he called her first. What's interesting is after he shot his parents, he walked over a mile, about a mile and a half, to a church and we believe during that time that he was walking to the church is when he called her, and then when he got to the church is when he called our 911 communication center. Do we have an idea? I mean, that's another kind of strange thing about this. Do we know why he decided to walk to the church? I mean, I can kind of connect a dot and think that he called his sister to tell her what he did, and she likely told him to call law enforcement. That's right. Where I'm going in my head with that. But why walk to the church?
Well, where his house is in relation to the church, even though it was, probably close to a mile and a half walked, it was a pretty direct line. This church sits up on a major road and is easily discernible as you're walking. And I'm thinking like you that his sister just encouraged him to call 911. And he probably felt that, walking up to the church and waiting for deputies to arrive was probably the safest place for him to do that.
So he walks to the church and he calls 911. Your call takers, or the 911 center call takers, I'm assuming, they're dispatching, they're trying to get information from him. They're talking to him. What can we glean from this whole thing about why this unfolded the way that it did?
Interestingly enough, we've had quite a few swatting calls in our community over the past couple of years. So initially when the call came in, there was some concern with our communication center that this was going to be another swatting call. So our communication center kept him on the line for quite a while as deputies responded to the house and surrounded the house and then attempted to make contact with the occupants inside the house. And based upon the information that our communication center was being given, the deputies made the determination to go ahead and make entry into the home to do what we call a protective sweep, where the deputies found the two deceased parents. And then our comm center, our dispatcher did a fantastic job keeping him on the phone and talking to him. And within just a couple of minutes, we were able to put eyes on him at the church. And at this point, we don't know if he was still armed. So the deputy that had eyes on him waited for a couple of backup deputies to get there, and then they came up with a plan and took him into custody. He came into custody peacefully. He did not, push back at all. He was in fact extremely cooperative with the deputies who took him into custody at the scene at the church, and then also with the detectives later on in the evening who were interviewing him.
What did he say happened as far as this? I guess maybe a disagreement with his parents. I mean, what do we know about that?
At this point, there's not a whole lot I can release regarding that because that, leads to a potential motive or potential defense for him. And, I will say that he was very candid about an argument that happened with his parents earlier in the evening. And he felt that, that this was his only way out, so to speak, was to take matters into his own hands. Very, very sad.
Wow. Do we have any inkling, or do you have an idea of how long it was between this argument and him actually shooting his parents? I mean, was there any cooling off period?
I don't have the exact time, but I would say a couple of hours of him contemplating on what his next steps would be, and again, a heavy burden for a 14-year-old to be in that position and feel that that was his way of handling it, so to speak. But the argument had happened earlier in the evening, so probably at least a couple of hours before.
And he uses his own parents, their firearm to carry this crime out.
As far as we know, the weapon used belonged to his mother.
So did the homicides happen right before he calls the sister, or did he wait? I mean, were they asleep in bed? I mean, what was going on?
That I don't know. I don't know from the time he shot his parents to the time he called his sister. I don't know how much time had lapsed, and we will probably be able to figure out a timeline through our investigative process. I do know that, it probably took him a good 15 minutes to walk that 1.5 miles from his home to the church. So, I don't know if he, left immediately after killing his parents and walked to the church, or if he waited around and then walked to the church. But we'll be able to figure that out through our interviews and piecing together the evidence that we have.
Okay, so as you heard from the sheriff, it's still early on in the investigation, and they're still working to piece together, the timeline. Now, what they do know is that there was an argument that happened, but what exactly the argument was about, because remember the comment from earlier that I told you to keep in mind, which was they said kids have to learn how to accept no. There is no indication here that this was as a result of, at least not yet, that the parents told him no, that, maybe he couldn't go somewhere, or maybe he couldn't have some money, whatever. That's pure speculation because authorities have not confirmed that. And what they did say is that he admitted to it. He's very open. He's walking them through. And to some extent, they may not provide us with details because they don't want to compromise an ongoing investigation. They did say that they need to get with his sister, but you heard from his sister, she said he made a mistake. He is not a monster. So what are your thoughts about this case? Keep in mind, it's still early on, so whatever information is available, I have provided it to you. Now I'm going to go ahead and play this last clip from a family member because he's going to state what they know or don't know. So drop your comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate everyone's support. Thank you.
Deputies are now tasked with figuring out what that fight was about and whether there were any behavioral issues before.
I don't know what caused them to do it, so.
Brandi's cousin, James Lewis, still can't believe it.
I guess I never know what caused them to do that because, like I say, he had good parents. So for him to, do that, we don't know why.
He says the family seemed close.